It's 6 a.m. Berlin is gray, the streets still damp from last night's rain. Outside a modest house in Neukölln, the silence breaks. Engines, radios crackling, heavy boots on wet pavement. This is not just another dawn. This is the morning the state comes for Mahmoud al-Zein. Inside, Mahmoud sits at his kitchen table. A cigarette burns slowly in the ashtray. He pours thick Arabic coffee, the same way every morning. For a moment, he looks like any other man in Berlin. Then, headlights flash through the curtains. He doesn't need to look. He already knows. The police are here. Outside, vans screech to a halt. Dozens of officers spill out, armed, helmets on, visors down. This is not a knock on the door. This is a storm. Zugriff! Take him! The door shatters. Boots thunder up the stairs. Shouts fill the narrow corridors. Mahmoud does not run. He does not hide. He simply leans back in his chair, exhales, and mutters to himself in Arabic. So, it's today. The kitchen fills with officers, weapons drawn, cameras rolling. One man sits at the table, calm, silent, cigarettes still burning. This is Mahmoud al-Zein, the man the German press calls the godfather of Berlin. Handcuffs click, the camera flashes, and outside, neighbors gather, watching through half-open curtains. And in that moment, Berlin sees its most powerful man brought to his knees. At the edge of the crowd, a young boy watches, clutching his school bag. His father whispers, "Look, son, that's Mahmoud. Remember this day. The state always wins." But the boy's eyes don't see defeat. They see power. They see a man who faced an army and didn't flinch. And that is how legends are born.
It's the early 1980s. A Lufthansa flight touches down at Dusseldorf Airport. The passengers file out, some with business suits, others with summer holiday luggage. But among them is a man with no fanfare. He carries a single leather bag, his eyes sharp, scanning everything. This is Mahmoud al-Zein, fresh from Lebanon, and Germany has no idea what's about to arrive on its soil. The first days are quiet. Mahmoud stays in a cramped flat in Neukölln, Berlin. The wallpaper is peeling, the heater barely works, but he doesn't complain. He walks the streets at night, watching. He notices the trickish cafes filled with men smoking, the Arabic bakeries opening before dawn, the bars where German workers stumble out after midnight. Every detail matters, because Mahmoud isn't here just to survive. He's here to build. It's 2 a.m. Mahmoud pulls his coat tight and wanders through Hermannplatz. The streets are alive, neon signs buzzing, drunks shouting, a distant siren wailing. A group of young Turks lean against a wall, cigarettes glowing in the dark. One of them steps forward. Wo kommst du her? Where are you from? Mahmoud pauses, then answers in a low voice. Beirut. The young man nods. Respect. In these circles, Beirut doesn't mean weakness, it means survival. That night, Mahmoud doesn't just make acquaintances, he plants the first seeds of alliances. Weeks later, in a smoky cafe off Sanan Ali, Mahmoud sits at a corner table. The smell of strong coffee and shisha fills the air. Across from him are two local toughs, men who control small-time rackets. They're wary at first. Mahmoud is new, an outsider. But when he speaks, his tone is calm, almost cold. You make money, yes, but you make it small. I can make it big. They laugh, but only for a moment. Something in his eyes silences them. Mahmoud doesn't need to raise his voice. Power leaks from him in every gesture, every pause. By the time he leaves the cafe, he's no longer just another immigrant. He's a player. Across the street, in a gray Opel Rekord, two plainclothes officers watch. They've been assigned to monitor the rising number of Lebanese migrants in Berlin. Through the cigarette smoke, they note Mahmoud's face, his company, his calm movements. One officer writes in his notebook, al-Zein, potential organizer, keep under surveillance. They don't know it yet, but they're witnessing the birth of what will become one of Germany's most feared clans. Mahmoud's reputation grows quietly. He starts small, protection fees from shops, settling disputes in his community. But every deal, every handshake adds another brick to the foundation of his empire. By the mid-1980s, Mahmoud isn't just surviving in Germany, he's building the framework of a shadow state, one that lives alongside the official one, but answers only to him. And soon, drugs will enter the picture, and everything will change.
Berlin, late 1980s. The wall still divides east and west. On one side, capitalism. On the other, communism. But in between, in the cracks, Mahmoud al-Zein is building something else entirely. Not a country, not a family, but a kingdom of money, loyalty, and fear. It begins with protection. A small kebab shop on Sanan Ali. The owner works 16 hours a day, barely making rent. One night, two masked men storm in, smashing bottles, threatening to burn the place down. The next morning, Mahmoud arrives calm. He sits with the owner over tea. You pay me. Nobody touches you again. The owner hesitates. Mahmoud leans closer. His voice drops to a whisper. Without me, you lose everything. With me, you lose nothing. By the time he leaves, another envelope of cash is secured. Multiply that by dozens of businesses, and Mahmoud now has a steady income. But protection money is small. Real wealth lies in something else. Cocaine, hashish, heroin. At first, Mahmoud doesn't deal directly. He arranges connections, Lebanese suppliers, Turkish routes, German distributors. He's the bridge. In Neukölln, whispered rumors start, Der Kater der Berlin, the godfather of Berlin. Soon, Mercedes cars line up outside apartments at midnight. Deals are made in hushed voices. Bricks of hash carried in sports bags, bundles of cash exchanged under street lights. But with growth comes attention. One winter morning, at 4 a.m., the police storm an apartment block linked to Mahmoud's men. Dogs bark, doors are kicked in, neighbors peek through curtains. Inside, officers find drugs, cash, and weapons. They drag out young Lebanese men in handcuffs. But not Mahmoud. Never Mahmoud. He's always one step away, shielded by layers of family and loyalty. To the police, he's untouchable. Not everyone pays willingly. One shopkeeper refuses protection, saying he doesn't fear Mahmoud. Days later, his car is found burned, black smoke curling into the Berlin sky. Mahmoud himself never lifts a finger, but everyone knows the message came from him, and no one refuses twice. Behind closed doors, Mahmoud plays the role of patriarch. A long table crowded with cousins and brothers, plates of lamb and rice, children laughing, the smell of coffee filling the air. Mahmoud sits at the head, silent, watching. For his family, he is not just a man, he is the pillar, the shield, the one who guarantees their survival in a country that treats them as outsiders. And loyalty to Mahmoud isn't just about money, it's about blood. By the early 1990s, Mahmoud controls protection rackets, drug routes, and a growing army of loyal men. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to show force. His reputation does the work for him. The newspapers begin to call the al-Zein clan one of the most dangerous in Germany. Police reports describe him as the godfather. But the empire he's building isn't invisible anymore. And with visibility comes risk, because Germany is watching, and the police are waiting for their chance to strike.
Berlin, mid-1990s. The city is changing. The wall has fallen, East and West reunite, and Germany is on the rise. But while politicians talk about freedom, a darker empire grows in the shadows, Mahmoud al-Zein's. And for the first time, the state decides to fight back. A gray, smoke-filled office in central Berlin. Detectives hunch over stacks of files, photographs, wiretap transcripts. Mahmoud's name is circled in red. One officer points to a grainy surveillance photo, Mahmoud stepping out of the black Mercedes, surrounded by men. He's the key, the clan boss. If we take him down, the whole network shakes. But they all know the problem. Mahmoud is insulated. He doesn't carry drugs, he doesn't touch the money. He gives orders, but never leaves fingerprints. Taking him down will take more than brute force. It will take patience. For months, Mahmoud's every move is tracked. Unmarked cars tail him through Berlin streets. Officers hide cameras outside cafes where he meets associates. Phones are tapped, conversations recorded. Still, Mahmoud is careful. He speaks in riddles, uses nicknames, never says drugs or money. His world is built on silence and code. The frustration grows inside the task force. It's like chasing a ghost. But the police strike where he is weakest, his men. One night, flashing blue lights surround a popular Berlin nightclub. Inside, Mahmoud's lieutenants are celebrating, glasses clinking, music pounding. The doors burst open, riot police flood in. Men are slammed against walls, pockets searched, tables overturned. Bags of cocaine scatter across the floor. The headlines the next morning screamed, "Clan Underworld Exposed." Mahmoud himself wasn't there, but the message is clear. The state is coming for him. In a quiet apartment, Mahmoud watches the news on TV. His face reveals nothing. His wife asks, "Will they come for you?" Mahmoud pours tea, slow and deliberate. They can watch, they can raid, but they will never find me. Yet outside, he sees the unmarked car parked down the street. The Watchers, always waiting. Then comes the crack in the armor. A cousin, once loyal, is arrested with kilos of cocaine. Faced with years in prison, he whispers names to the police, locations, meeting points. For the first time, the circle around Mahmoud isn't airtight. It happens before dawn. Hundreds of officers across Germany move in at once. Doors are smashed in, houses raided, safes cracked open. In Neukölln, Mahmoud is asleep when the sound of boots thunders up the stairs. Shouts echoed through the hallway. "Polizei! Polizei!" His children cry as masked officers burst into the bedroom. Flashlights blind him. Guns are raised. For the first time in his reign, Mahmoud al-Zein is handcuffed. Hours later, in a concrete cell, Mahmoud sits alone. No family, no bodyguards, just silence. He runs a hand over his face, expressionless. For years, he believed he was untouchable. Now, the walls are closing in. But deep down, Mahmoud knows one thing. In his world, arrests don't always mean the end. Because power isn't just on the streets. It's in loyalty. And as long as the clan breathes, Mahmoud's shadow still lingers. By the late 1990s, Mahmoud al-Zein has become Germany's most feared crime boss and its most hunted. His empire is shaken, but not destroyed. The war between him and the German state has only just begun.
Berlin, early 2000s. The city awakes to flashing headlines. The godfather of Neukölln faces justice. The name Mahmoud al-Zein is no longer whispered in back rooms. It's splashed across every newspaper, shouted on every television broadcast. For years he was a ghost, a shadow that ruled in silence. Now he's forced into the light, the courtroom. It's morning. A sea of cameras crowds the steps of the Berlin courthouse. Reporters shove microphones forward, lenses zoom, voices overlap. Is this the end of the al-Zein clan? Can German law finally take down the mafia? The black police van pulls up, sirens blaring. Out steps Mahmoud, wrists chained, flanked by heavily armed officers. The crowd erupts. Some cheer, some curse. And there, in that chaos, Mahmoud walks with his head high, calm, almost regal. The courtroom is packed. Journalists, police, curious onlookers. Everyone wants to see the man who's been called the godfather of Berlin. Mahmoud sits at the defense table, flanked by lawyers in black robes. His eyes scan the room, cold, calculating. The prosecutor rises. Papers slam on the table. We will prove that Mahmoud al-Zein built an organized crime empire on drugs, extortion, and fear. We will show that no one, not even him, is above the law. But Mahmoud, he leans back, expression unreadable. Witnesses take the stand. Former associates, rival dealers, even family members dragged into the storm. One claims, "I saw him give the orders. Nothing in Berlin happened without his permission." Another whispers, "We feared him. If you crossed Mahmoud, you didn't live long." But defense lawyers strike back. They call it lies, exaggerations, desperate men saving themselves. And they remind the court, Mahmoud never touched drugs, never signed contracts, no fingerprints, no paper trail. The battle becomes less about proof and more about belief. One night, after a long trial day, Mahmoud is escorted back to his cell. He passes a corridor window. Outside, rain lashes the city streets. He whispers to a guard, "Berlin will forget me, but my family, they will never disappear." The guard stays silent, unnerved by the calm in his voice. Weeks turn into months. The courtroom grows tense. Journalists write of a state desperate for victory. Supporters of Mahmoud whisper that no prison bars can contain a man with such reach. Finally, the judge calls for silence. The gavel slams. The words cut through the room. Mahmoud al-Zein, guilty of organized crime and drug trafficking, sentenced to prison. Gasps echo. Journalists scribble furiously. The room feels like history in motion. Mahmoud doesn't flinch. He doesn't shout, doesn't curse. He simply turns to his lawyer and nods. As guards move to take him away, he looks at the cameras one last time and smiles. For Germany, it feels like a victory. The state has caged the most powerful man of Neukölln. But on the streets, whispers remain. The clan still moves, still trades, still commands fear. Because with men like Mahmoud al-Zein, prison is not an ending. It's only another battlefield.